Thank you for joining our November Information Exchange meeting. It seemed to be a very interesting one where we'll talk about what support is available to those who would like to share their concerns or complain to any services provided by the NHS services. We have 3 speakers today. They will all introduce themselves. Just so you know that you will have a chance to share to ask your questions. You can use the reactions at the bottom of your screen. You can send a message using the chat box. Our first speaker will be Richard Bull he will introduce himself, sorry. Then we have the second speaker, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. But again, if there is anything that you would like to put in your chat box, please do feel free. And then we'll have Malcolm Alexander as our third speaker. So without taking so much of your time, Richard, can I pass the ball to you now?
Thanks, Canaria. My name's Richard Bull. I'm a commissioner for primary care. Primary care is, in that context, GP practices. And I work for North East London Integrated Commissioning Board, which previously known locally as City of Hackney CCG. But I'm doing the same job for the ICB that I was doing in the CCG. So really, I'm here to talk about how you can complain about NHS services, particularly about GPs primary care, but also how you can leave feedback as well, because that is equally important. So you have the right to make a complaint about any aspect of NHS care, treatment or service, and that's written into the NHS Constitution. And the NHS encourages feedback because it's used to improve services. So if you wish to share your views and experiences, positive or negative, I'd encourage you to speak to a member of the practice team. That could be any member of the practice team, but quite often the practice manager would be your first port of call there. Some practices welcome, they've got suggestion forms, so either on the premises or on their website. So please check to see what your practice website says. And there are a number of different other ways of leaving feedback. You could be asked to give feedback via the friends and family test. I know practices were doing that a lot pre-COVID, and then it stopped, but then some of that's come back again. If you are one of those patients that receive the National GP Patient Survey, which is an annual survey, independent survey run by PICA on behalf of the NHS, I'd encourage you to fill that in. It's quite a big survey. It's quite a thick survey, a lot of questions. But I think if you would need any help in filling that in, then I think Health Watch would be there to support you doing that. Canaria, is that right?
Well, we are obviously always happy to hear patients' feedback on the NHS services. We can definitely try and support where possible to complete questionnaires, or to find another volunteer who can perhaps do it. Yeah, just get in touch with us.
Okay, the GP patient survey is incredibly helpful for local planners and for practices themselves. Practices get to see what patients are saying about their services across a big spectrum of questions. Also, then it's very helpful for people like me that commission services who have an eye for monitoring the quality of practices to understand how well individual practices are performing and how they compare against other practices, not just within City and Hackney, but within North East London or within London itself, or indeed compared to practices across the whole country. So you really get a sense of how local practices are performing. By all means, take part in your local patient participation group as well. That's probably more relevant if you are a regular user of primary care GP services. Probably less relevant if you are a very infrequent user, but that's a great way to provide feedback. And then there are other feedback options as well. So care opinion is a way of leaving feedback online. It's currently being piloted in City and Hackney. Not all practices have care opinion. All practices have the option of having care opinion. Not everyone's got it at this point in time. But the great thing about care opinion is, unlike other online platforms, it's independently moderated. So sometimes it then helps. You can have a bit of a dialogue between the person leaving the feedback and the practice, to iron out any unclear areas in the question, or to diffuse a particularly challenging piece of feedback that might not necessarily land very well. So care opinion, and also the other good thing about care opinion as well is you can link in other providers. So rather than having to, if you got something to say that involves, say, that your GP and the Homerton or community services or dentistry or something like that, you can link in all those providers into your one piece of feedback. So you don't need to provide individual pieces of feedback. And providers then also, e.g. GPs, get to see how their contribution to your story, your feedback, how their part in that. And there are other ways of leaving feedback as well. So Google reviews, I know a lot of people leave reviews on Google, but GPs or practices don't then have the chance to respond. That piece of feedback is just static. It stays there on the web. And the problem with that is anybody can leave feedback, even if it's not your, you can say something malicious about somebody else's practice, either deliberately or accidentally. So Google reviews do, they've got their problems. It's very helpful for practices to hear feedback, good or bad, because that's the way they learn and improve on the care they deliver, and also the way they structure their services as well. So, for example, I see all of the feedback that's left on care opinion, and I know that a practice very close by, they received a piece of feedback which was a complaint. The practice had introduced a new appointment system, and I think in day one, this patient tried to use it. It didn't work for them. They went on to care opinion, said this is why it's not working for them. And then the practice saw that, responded, said, thank you very much. Really useful feedback that will help us improve our system. And then they made some changes. It was all about getting stuck in a loop whereby if you have an urgent need, you just need to get straight through to the practice rather than use the online way of contacting him. But for some reason that sort of ended up going in some loop, which wasn't very helpful at all, clearly. If you are unhappy with any aspect of your care as part of the NHS, including primary care, it's very useful, worthwhile to discuss those with the provider of the service as early on as possible, because quite many times the issue can be sorted out quite quickly without the need for further escalation. And again, talk to the GP, talk to the practice manager. If you do need to take the complaint further, then you can take that to the commissioner, which in this case is for GPs, NHS England. You can find their details online. If you look up how do I find the commissioner on the NHS website, how to make a complaint, they'll give you the details for NHS England. You can write to them, and I can put in the chat a little bit later their postal address, and you can also email them, and you can also phone them. So I'll leave all that in the chat for you, and I'll send that to Canary as well. No doubt Canary's already got that information.
Yeah, Richard, all that will be in the complaints charter booklet.
Okay, fine. It's all in the charter, so
yes.
say no more.
Thank,
So that's what I wanted to say. So thank you.
thank you, Richard.
Very happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Just very quickly to say that people can also leave feedback on our website as well. They can contact us, they can email us, phone us, or if they see our being out and about, please approach us and share your feedback. And Richard, just maybe it will be useful to ensure people that if they raise a concern or if they make a complaint to the service directly, that shouldn't and will not change the quality of the care they receive.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. I have Rebecca's hand. Rebecca?
Hi. Hello. Hi. Hello, Richard. Just two questions. Thank you very much for the feedback. I really appreciate that. One, does NHS Direct come underneath your banner? And secondly, how do we complain about the fact that how the government put in this thing about if you miss 2 dentist appointments, you're then blocked? Now, I want to complain about the fact that being disabled and stuck in my building prevented me from going to see my dentist, and you see my teeth right now. Really need it. You see my teeth now, and I really, how do I, because I've now been banned from the practice because I've missed 2 meetings, 2 appointments, no fault of my own. So how do I complain about that dentist or getting another ground floor appointment? So firstly, the NHS Direct, do they come underneath any of the things that you were discussing?
So NHS Direct 111 doesn't come under me. I assume I need to check how you go about complaining about NHS 111 because I just don't know. So I'll find that out for you.
And what exactly the issue is, I think, Rebecca, I'm happy to talk to you tomorrow, perhaps to find out more, because we don't know. I mean,
okay.
Did they ask for your, I don't know, accessibility, for your access needs? Because you were saying about a ground floor dentist. Yeah, you were on mute, Rebecca. But as Richard said, we can have a look. Oh, yeah, Malcolm.
I'll just come in there because each of the 111 services is commissioned by a body. For example, the London Ambulance Service commissioned 2 of those services in London. So one route would be to find who the commissioner was for the 111 service in your area.
Yeah.
So do you want more?
So my advice there, my follow-up advice would be if you've got any questions about, you can either approach HealthWatch because HealthWatch know a lot of the answers, but also you could approach the Integrated Commissioning Board with any questions. So for example, how do I complain about NHS Direct or dentistry? You could ask the Integrated Commissioning Board, and then they would try and find the right person to answer that question.
But
to answer your question about how you complain about dentists, that would be via NHS England at this point in time. But that might well change next year when the responsibility for dentistry comes to local commissioners rather than NHS England. It's quite, I appreciate it's quite confusing. There are a variety of different commissioners. It isn't apparent, to many people, the public, who commissions what. So having, either 2 ports of call to ask questions, HealthWatch or the ICB, I would suggest, you go there first.
And Rebecca, I appreciate that you may have some outstanding questions, but just to keep going with the meeting, because we have another speaker come in and someone else raised their hand. I will get in touch with you tomorrow, or I'll put my email here in the chat box. Please do email me back. Thank you, Rebecca. Sally, very quickly from you as well.
Thank you. So you mentioned that we can give feedback across a number of organisations. I think my experience of poor performance or care with the NHS has lasted for about 3 decades, and I've got to a point where I'm actually too terrified to go to the NHS. can I use the same process to complain about my treatment, or do I need to do something else?
Richard, are you respond, or maybe again, I guess we'll have to find out more about what the issue is and what has been done so far.
I mean, that is clearly a huge what you said there is, 3 decades of poor treatment. That's a lot to deal with, isn't it? So it's sort of really understanding how best to sort of tackle that, really, and how best so the providers can hear that and respond appropriately.
Yeah, there's a lot of providers that have failed me considerably. And I would actually like to say, though, that my current GP practice is probably the best GP practice that I've had, and is likely the reason why I actually feel like I can say something now. But I'm deeply traumatized by my experiences, and I need to get this sorted out.
Sally, I would say the same. I just put my email in the chat box. Please do feel free to get in touch with me. Send me a phone number so I can give you a call back if that's easier. But please do get in touch if you feel like you want to tell us more about it and see how we can support you, what other organizations are out there to support you further. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sally, and thank you, Richard, for your presentation. Now I will have to hand over to Sabrina. Sabrina, are you ready for that? Sabrina from the Advocacy Project.
Hi. I'm just going to wait for the presentation to be pulled up. My name is Sabrina Solomon, and I'm the head of service delivery for an organisation called the Advocacy Project. And basically, we provide a range of advocacy services in Hackney. They range from non-statutory advocacy to statutory advocacy. I'm not sure if the presentations, oh yeah, brilliant, thank you. So before we get on to talk about the focus of today and why we're here, I thought I'd just tell you all a little bit about, who we are as the Advocacy Project. So we're experts in advocacy and user involvement. So we've been working in the sector for about 20 years. And more recently, we have grown and we deliver health watch services in the Borough and Brent. And we also have grown to deliver personal health budgets. So our mission, and it's on our website, is to enable people to have their voice heard, uphold their rights and make choices. And we're the lead provider for independent advocacy in Hackney. So we cover lots of different types of advocacy, all of the types of advocacy. We offer non-statutory advocacy, which is delivered by what we call small and medium enterprises. So lots of smaller organisations in the borough. And I know that Rebecca and Christine are on the call, and Rebecca will be talking about her experiences of raising concerns about social care provider. But just on that point, Rebecca, if you do want to reach out and speak with Christine, we'll put you in touch with our health complaints advocates so we can help with that. So we deliver mental health advocacy, mental capacity advocacy, deprivation, advocacy for people who are deprived of their liberty legally, and we also offer health complaints advocacy. And so that's why we're here today, to talk a little bit more about that service. So if you could go to the next slide, if fingers all going well, we should get a video about our health complaints service. Should be a play button.
Am I on the right slide?
Yeah, so I inserted that link in. Okay, no problem. I think we'll just have to skip. We'll have to skip past that slide if it's not there. So if that video can be found on YouTube, and it talks about how we can support people who would like to make a health complaint. It's really easy to follow and maybe a little bit more interesting than me speaking. So just running through who's eligible to use our health complaint services. You know, you must be a Hackney resident and you must be making a complaint about an NHS service. So this could be for yourself, or it could be for someone that you're caring for or representing. So sometimes we support people whose relatives have died, and we support them to make a health complaint in relation to care and treatment. Or it might be that, you know, it's the parent of a child or young person. Or it might be that actually, you know, the person does directly, and they've asked for our support in terms of representing them. We offer personalized support or personalized help, and it depends really on the needs of the person, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more. If you could go to the next slide, that would be great. So the kinds of things that we can kind of help with are, you'll find here. So treatment normally is around, you know, where there have been clinical issues, and they include clinical errors. It could be around the type of care that's been received. So, you know, we receive a lot of complaints, typically actually around staff attitude and care. Poor communication often comes up. So that could also include things like not being given information in a timely fashion. It might also relate to when you a person makes a health complaint, makes a request for their health records, and that request isn't facilitated. We can kind of help with those things as well. Sometimes people experience really long waiting times, or they're not, you know, kept up to date, or it may be that their appointments are delayed. So all these are all kinds of things that a health complaints advocate would be able to help with. If you could go on to the next slide, thank you. So, you know, the things that the health complaints advocate can help with are set out on the slide. First of all, we'd really want to understand, you know, what is the nature of the health complaint, and we could talk you through the various options. So, you know, it might be that, you know, you want to have an informal kind of meeting with the provider. It may be that you do want to make a formal complaint. It might be that you want to know the difference between, you know, making a complaint via PAL or via our service. We can give lots of useful information, and we can also signpost to other organisations. So quite often when people are coming to our service, we identify that actually there might be help available outside of the health complaint. So the advocate will talk you through that. Of course, our role is to solely represent your views, the person's views and wishes. So we don't take a position, we don't have a view. You know, our role is solely to support you and to stand by your side. We can help with drafting complaints. We don't write complaints as such, like on a headed paper, because that would indicate that you know we had a view. So where possible, we always try to empower people, and we support people to write complaints in their own words. But you know, because actually the voice of the person who's experienced the issue should be at the forefront of that complaint. We can also support with meeting preparation. So, you know, what do you need to do? What do you want to get out of it? How do you prepare? And of course, sometimes people don't always get the outcomes that they want from a complaint. And we can certainly support with helping individuals to escalate complaints, or to know the next steps if they want to do that at a later time. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we do have people come into us and the outcomes that they want are not things that we can really help with. So for example, we're not in a position to give information, legal advice around, you know, so commonly people seek our advice when they've experienced sort of clinical or medical negligence. We wouldn't be able to give you advice, but we could certainly, you know, put you in touch with solicitors or signpost you to legal representatives who might be able to help with that. We don't take on an investigative role in the complaints process. Our role is to help a person put their views forward and to kind of put forward what the outcomes they want are. We don't give medical advice. We're not trained medical professionals or clinicians. And we can't help with complaints that are outside the NHS complaints regulations. So when we talk, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but ultimately it relates to sort of care and treatment offered outside NHS that's funded outside the NHS. Okay, so before we spoke about a personalised approach, we do have, so on first having a conversation with the person wishing to make a complaint, we would try to figure out what kind of support it is they want and what they need. And, you know, we, in the first instance, we do always try to encourage people to use our self-help pack. And there's lots of reasons for this. One, it's full of helpful tips and information that can be used, you know, in a range of ways, not just, you know, to the health complaint, but it also promotes empowerment and self-advocacy. At the end of the day, we want people to be able, you know, to raise their own concerns, and if they were to find themselves in that situation again, to be able to progress their complaint independently because they've been equipped with the skills and tools to do that. Also, you know, by using, you know, the self-help pack where people, you know, are able to self-advocate, it does allow us to focus on local residents who are in greatest need. So it might be, you know, that, you know, they come with lived experience of a learning disability or autism or dementia, or, you know, it might be, yeah. So we do try and encourage that where possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so, you know, once we've decided what kind of support you would like, it's really important for the individual to think about what outcomes they would like to achieve. So, you know, is it that you want a letter of apology? Is it that you want services to change for the better so that someone else doesn't experience them? It's really important that anyone making a health complaint is, you know, is really clear about what outcomes they want to achieve, but also that they're specific and realistic. So when I say that, what I'm ultimately saying is we can't help where people are wanting financial compensation, or where they're hoping that disciplinary action will be taken against NHS staff. That would sit entirely outside our remit. That being said, that doesn't mean that those things can't happen as something that's separate, as a separate process. Thank you. So just a final few words from me before I hand over to Christine and Rebecca to share their experience of, you know, I guess challenging decisions around, you know, challenging decisions. Our service is free, it's confidential. The only exception to confidentiality is where we're concerned about risk, either to the person themselves or to another person. It's independent, and also it's worth bearing in mind that making a complaint, you know, things do go wrong occasionally, but making a complaint can make a difference. So I think that's the last slide. I think the next one's questions. Yep. So yeah. Oh no, it's get in touch. So yeah, if you would like to speak with us, you can make a referral via our website, and I can put that in the chat. It's the Advocacy Project. On our website, there is also a you can download our self-help pack. You know, yeah, it could help. And also, you know, if you did want to speak to someone directly, you felt you couldn't go through those routes, please give a call. We have a dedicated single point of access, which just means we have people on the telephone who would be able to help. So yeah, so now I will hand over to Christine.
Thank you, Sabrina.
And Rebecca.
Before we go to Christine and Rebecca, just to say that we will share your presentation with all
brilliant. Okay.
today, and we'll put a link to your website as well. And Rebecca and Christine, over to you now, but I'll appreciate it if it doesn't take more than 10 minutes. Yeah. You may probably have more to say, but please try to stick to that time. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. So hi, everyone. Yes, so I have the lovely Rebecca that will be having a little conversation. So just to introduce myself, I'm Christine. I work for the Advocacy Project. I'm the Advocacy Network Coordinator. So in Hackney, we have a specific contract where we have been supporting small organizations to develop their own advocacy services. So as the Advocacy Network Coordinator, I support these small organizations with regular supervisions, training. So it's the developing advocacy services within the area. And Rebecca had experience of being supported by one of our advocates. The advocate's name is Philip from Age UK. and Rebecca had she had a specific issue relating to accessibility in her building, and it really affected her health. So I'm just going to have a discussion with Rebecca about her experience and how non-statutory advocacy relating to this issue was able to support her. So hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us to talk about your experience of using non-statutory advocacy. It would be great if you could tell us a little bit more about what your advocacy issue was concerning the lift.
So, long story short, I became physically disabled about 9 years ago. And it was mainly, long story short, my disc came out of my spine and the lift in my building caused a protrusion that then became a prolapse, from which about 1.5 years ago, I had a prolapse disc surgery. And I've been housebound for the last 5 years because of the lift, not just because of COVID. And what the lift does is it jerks when it comes to the top floor, and I'm on the top floor. Top floor is 4th floor, but one side there's stairs, which is like 7 lots of stairs. It's weird. And then the other side, and when it goes down, when the lift goes down to the ground floor, it jerks on the bottom floor. So when you come back in, it jerks 4 inches, and that's when my disc pops out. Consequently, I'm talking from my bed because I live in my living room. Commode is over there behind the bookshop, and I have all these adaptations here.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yes. Yeah.
Adaptations and everything. So I made numerous complaints about this, and I had a lot of post-traumatic stress because the building works were going on. They decided to spend £88,000 whitewashing the building rather than actually fix the lift. Consequently, the drilling caused me to go in and out of hospital due to my mental health problems. There was issues with the mental health and how they treated me at Connolly Ward. And again, the advocate there stood up for me, and she was absolutely brilliant. Now, with all this,
and Rebecca, could I ask you, in your journey, how did you come in contact with Philip from AGK?
Yeah, so with all this coming and goings, I missed out filling my forms because I wasn't in the mental health place. Physically, I was too busy trying to get over just dealing with life, rolling out of bed to get myself food in a microwave over there. And I couldn't deal with the paperwork. I got to the point where I didn't realize that I hadn't filled in my benefit forms, and the government cancelled it all. And I was in and out of hospital, and the advocate there referred me to Age UK, where I got where the lovely gentleman Phil got onto my case about you need to get your benefits, you need to get the carers in, and my PIP is now in tribunal. Although they've got masses of MRIs to show I have a prolapse disc and a spinal deformity, I'm sitting up with cushions. I can't sit up by myself. And I've been housebound because the lift doesn't work properly, and they won't fix it. And so Phil
and Rebecca, yes, carry on. I was just going to ask you what Phil did to support you. So the different,
so my head wasn't in the right place to sort this paperwork out. So I reached out to Phil. He came and helped me sort out that I made the right phone calls, get the right paperwork, and then I set the paperwork off. And basically the empowerment that he gave me to make me feel I can deal with this, that I can speak to various people. I've now got carers coming in, which were meant to be coming in, but because of all the issues I had, I kept cancelling them. And he was like, "No, you really need them. You can keep them." He's helped me look at the paperwork and try and get them all to the right people, really. And if it hadn't been for him, I don't know what I would do, because I'm in and out of hospital because I have a lot of suicidal issues, and I can't cope with dealing with paperwork, 34 pages of trying to say the right thing. They've helped me get stronger in my own self.
Yes, good.
With the paperwork, and again, coming to visit me because I've just had another care review, and I need that paper to be looked at because I don't trust myself anymore about with paperwork because the government's cut me at every chance. Because I
Yeah.
didn't know how to word it rightly.
Yeah.
So now they're helping me get the right welfare people in my life. And I don't
so
know where I'd be without them, really.
yeah, and Rebecca, also you're saying that there's going to be future work that you're going to reach out to advocacy for as well.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think that's it. I think you've done really well. You smashed it. Yeah, I think yeah. So I think that's everything. But well done, Rebecca. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Definitely. Thank you for sharing, Rebecca, and well done on Philip and all you guys from the Advocacy Project as well for supporting Rebecca, and I'm sure many others as well. So yeah, again, shout out to anyone who has concerns or something more serious. Please do not hesitate to speak to the service provider directly. The Advocacy Project is there to provide you with the additional information as well. And do not forget to share your feedback with us too. Any questions, any quick questions for the Advocacy Project for Christine, or I guess not, Rebecca as well? No? Okay, excellent. Then I will hand over to Malcolm Alexander now, who will talk to you about the Complaints Charter, which I will quickly share on my screen. But Malcolm.
Hello. Hi, I'm Malcolm Alexander. I've been an activist in Health Watch for a number of years, and I've also been a complaints advocate for a number of years. So I was a complaints advocate for about 10 years, actually in a sort of a rather different model to the one that's been described today. I suppose I was a kind of advocate that did write the letters, and I think one of the interesting things was the connection between helping to investigate complaints, but also looking at the outcomes and seeing how you can actually influence a system responsible for the care that's provided. So that's quite an interesting thing that we might say a few words on further on. But anyway, can we see the charter, please?
Yes, I'm just opening up.
Yeah,
I'll
okay,
open the GP charter one.
So the charter was written something like about 5 years ago now. And it followed a public meeting about complaints in Hackney, in which people sort of said they weren't really satisfied with the complaint system. It was difficult to use. It was unclear what people's rights were. And so people said, let's have a charter. So we wrote a charter. And as we developed this charter, which you're going to see in just a moment, we then went around to all the bodies in Hackney, London Borough of Hackney, the East London Foundation Trust, and Homerton Hospital. And then we started to sort of go to all the other people as well. So we went to the GPs who signed it, we went to the dentists who signed it, and we went to the pharmacists who signed it. So all the sort of bodies that were, you can see there, all the bodies locally. These are some of the earlier bodies that you can see, but after that we went to the other organisations and got them to sign up. And I'm glad to say that they all did. So did the London Ambulance Service, actually. So it was quite a valuable document. The question is, what does a document do? And before I tell you that, I think one of the problems with the document is that it's full of really good stuff. It's what everybody in all the organisations in Hackney are committed to, which is fantastic. But trying to get these bodies to actually distribute this charter, for example, when somebody has a complaint, they never send it to them. So the local bodies seem to find it really difficult to distribute a document which says so many nice things about what you can expect from a complaint service. So this document is really, as has already been explained, that the complaint system in the health service requires legally all NHS bodies to respond properly to complaints according to the regulations. And that's really important. But this document, it really looks as a set of principles. And those principles, you can we're going to sort of go down, you can sort of look at those as we go along. Those principles really are about power and empowerment. And they're also about how you could get enduring changes to services. And I think a lot of people, and we've heard a bit of that today, and a lot of people experience a great wall when they come to try to deal with a complaint, because one of the things that happens, for example, is that you go to, say, you've got to make a complaint, and somehow you're transferred to a PAL service, and the PAL service isn't bound by those regulations. So you're kind of being passed through another bit of the system. You may not realize that that's happening. So this particular chart you're seeing is the charter which has been signed with the with general practice and in the area. And you can sort of see those basic principles: acknowledge your complaint within 3 working days, and having a contact person that you can get through to about getting when the complaint's being investigated, actually sort of getting an update. And a really important thing is this last thing here: ensure your complaint does not adversely affect your ongoing or future care in any way. And I can tell you, a lot of people in my experience are quite frightened to make complaints because they think, I make complaints against my GP. Is that going to affect me in some way? Will it harm me? And it's the same, when people make complaints against hospitals or against their dentists or whatever, and I think that the truth is, in my long experience of complaints work, is that when you're making a complaint, you improve the service you receive, and you improve the service for other people as well. So in my experience, it is a very positive thing to make complaints and to engage in a discussion with those who are responsible for the service and ask for evidence that services have been improved as a result of the complaint that you've made. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Oops, sorry.
Or just,
There we go.
yeah, okay. So ensuring openness and transparency is so important. You're dealing with a situation where perhaps you're very. I mean, I think the issue was raised previously about the dentist and having your appointment cancelled. What we expect is a high standard of care and treatment from those practitioners, and understanding our experience, which can often be very painful. I mean, when I was a complaints advocate, I came across people with complaints which seemed sort of almost impossible to realize that these things have happened inside an NHS body. People are often very traumatized, and we've already heard today about that sort of trauma, but people can be very traumatized by 2 things. One is the quality of care they've received. The second thing that can traumatize them is the failure to respond appropriately to issues which have been raised. And that process can, and somebody said this today already, that process can go on and on and on, because every time you try to get through to the system, in some cases, the system can fail you and not wanting to respond. And this is also true when you go to the ombudsman, because it can take a year sometimes for ombudsman to resolve a complaint, and it won't necessarily be in your favor. Having said that, I've also experienced a lot of very, very positive things that come from complaints. I said before, making a complaint actually should in my experience, does improve the service you receive. But then having that ongoing relationship that sort of says, okay, this is what's happened, you show me the evidence that things have improved, and let us make sure that we have a conversation so we can see that improvement taking place. And that improvement is not just for you, but that improvement is for everybody. And I think that's what's so important. So we should always see complaints as a vehicle for transformation of services. And so what the Charter does in all of these sort of sections of the Charter, derive really from the issues that people have raised, and they're a way of sort of saying, well, everybody, all the organization in this area fully support these principles. Now the question is, how do we move from supporting these principles to actually each of the bodies distributing this Charter, making sure it's available to patients, making sure it's on GP surgeries' walls in the wards and around the hospitals and other NHS buildings. But you'll very rarely see it, and I think it's a major issue that we've got to change, because if everybody knows about these principles, they're going to be much happier about making complaints, and much happier about working with commissioners and providers of services to make sure that those transformations are actually taking place. Yeah, okay.
Oops. Maybe in this order I should say that, Malcolm, we've done quite a lot of work around delivering those charters to the relevant services. So
Yeah,
every
we have.
GP practice should have this charter, a poster of the charter, and the booklets displayed on their waiting area as well. Dentists should have it. They should be on the hospital wall.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not. You see, you go into Homerton Hospital, you try to find it. You ask East London Foundation Trust was asked why they don't distribute it to people who make complaints, and their answer was, well, because we have services in many parts of the country, and we can't just provide a charter for one bit of it, even though they've signed it, even though the Health and Wellbeing Board for Hackney has agreed it. Nevertheless, you'll find that unless we go around and we say to the dentists and the doctors, you know, can you put this on your wall? It won't be distributed. It should be distributed to every patient who makes a complaint. It should be on the walls of every health service building. And that's why they've signed it, because it's about transforming services, about giving patients confidence that when they complain, they're going to be listened to. And it's about making sure that all of our experiences working together lead to an improvement and transformation of services. So I'll stop there, but happy to take questions.
All right. And maybe just to say, Malcolm, shall we continue? Would you like to continue with this? So as Richard was saying, it's always good to speak to your service provider directly if you have a concern or complaint, to see if this can be resolved internally. But if this doesn't work, or you feel not confident to talk to the service provider directly, maybe because you feel that this will change the quality of care you receive, or you are somehow unsatisfied with the response you receive from the service provider, these are the organizations that you can approach to raise your complaint further.
Yeah, but I mean, these organizations, when you go to NHS England, you see, you want to, I mean, the thing about the charter is resolving complaints as quickly as possible and close enough to close to the organization or the individuals responsible for the complaints. Because I can tell you something, go back to that slide. Can you just go back to the slide that we were looking at before? You make your complaint to NHS England or the General Medical Council, you're in for a long journey, I can tell you. I've been through these many times. I mean, to go through to take a complaint against a doctor to the GMC, I mean, is very powerful. But it will take years of your life away. It's very important to do, and sometimes I go along to the tribunals where these cases are brought against doctors, and you won't believe some of the things that doctors get up to. But I mean, it is a very complex process, and NHS England is also a very sort of long and complex process. So yeah, I mean, go to them. But please try to resolve your complaint as close as possible to where it actually happened, if you possibly can. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Malcolm. Ideally, no one needs to go further, but to share their concern before they become a complaint, really, to share their concern with the service provider who's supposed to listen and take action. So if you have a concern, don't wait for it to become a complaint. Just talk to your GP or whatever service you receive, to the main person there. If you don't know what to do, give us a call and we'll guide you through. We'll signpost it to the advocacy project, for example. We have a few questions here, a few notes. Yes, Ella, we will send the link to those documents, to the 3 different charters that we have, definitely. We have Well Done for Rebecca, an advocacy project. Thank you, Ella, for sharing the link to the video that Sabrina, we were not able to play from your presentation. And Matilda is saying that my suffering from a hospital, I would like my voice heard. Definitely, Matilda, you got my email address there. I think I have your phone number as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's up to you. We don't have really much time to perhaps to hear a lot from your feedback, but if there is a general information that you would like to ask.
Yes. Where do I go to if a hospital has almost blinded my eyes and torn their backs? I'm suffering from having a simple operation and both eyes, and both of the operation went wrong.
Well, I would, one of the organizations I'd recommend you go to is AVMA, Action Against Medical Accidents, because AVMA are a very good organization at looking at issues where you might want to make a legal claim against a hospital. So you'll find AVMA on it very easily, and they have expert
they're
staff there that
detailed.
can support you.
The details.
Action. Sorry.
I can send those to you, Matilda, if you like.
Bless you. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And yes, very good point here. Rebecca Khan is asking, what is the time frame? Richard, and maybe Malcolm and Sabrina as well, if you want to quickly touch on the time frame that people can actually
The
take
time
up.
frame in the charter is, well, it varies actually, but in the charter it's 30 working days.
Oh, this is for, sorry, Rebecca, maybe I'm interpreting your question wrong. Yes.
It's
So,
30 working
maybe
days to
respond, but when should?
No, not
what
to
is the-
respond. Not to respond. 30 working days for resolution.
Right, but what should be the time frame for people to raise their complaint in terms of like how long they can wait in a maximum to share feedback or to raise a complaint? Is it like 2 years for the last 2 years perhaps, or can anything be done for an issue that happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago?
It depends. It varies, but I think Sabrina might be better at answering that one.
And Richard, perhaps.
My understanding, it was what, 1 to 2 years. I'd need to double check, but 2 years maximum. I know that. Oh, go on, Richard.
It varies. If it's a child, if it concerns a child, for example, then it has a different time frame.
I don't have anything to say on the time frame itself, but I think it's the point that people should come forward as early as possible.
Of course, but as
Because-
Rebecca was, sorry, go on, Richard. Yeah.
No.
Because as Rebecca was saying, she just got a very good GP and she is feeling like more comfortable to speak up about the issues now. Was that right, Rebecca?
What is it?
Yes, thank you. My GPs have actually been really great. So I just wanted to say thank you to that. But whenever there's a complaint procedure, and I've just got somebody from the Hackney Council right now, whenever there's a complaint procedure, the Hackney Council don't seem to take it seriously about housing or health.
Right.
So it's, what can you guys do to help us?
I'm pretty sure that in the NHS it's 3 years.
So normally each provider will have their time frame set out, but I think that there will always be mitigation. So for example, if someone's been in really poor health and that had prevented them from making the complaint, then that certainly wouldn't bar them. So I would suggest that in the first instance, I would look at the local providers, what their policy says.
Yeah. I assisted somebody recently who had a complaint going back sorry.
Yeah.
I assisted somebody recently who had a complaint that went back 5 years, and I actually assisted them, and they got compensation despite the fact that it was well in excess of the 3 year
Very good.
3 year period in which you're supposed to make a claim.
Very good, Malcolm. Thank you. Okay, I can see that you've been asking for the link to those documents. I will definitely do this first thing tomorrow morning. I'll send you the link to the documents and the presentation, and later on I'll send you the link to the video, to the meeting recordings as well, so you can watch it, you can share the information with your friends or people that you know of. I will definitely do this. Any further questions?
Just one other point is the if you're looking for the maximum period, it's called the statute of limitations.
The statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a legal framework for determining how long you have before you can no longer make a claim.
Right. Okay. All right. So once again, let's wrap this up. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Christine, and for all of you that joined the meeting. Again, I would like to say and encourage people to share their feedback, good or bad, with the services, because this can really change someone's life. It can change your life or those that will come after you and use the services as well. And as Richard also mentioned, feedback helps services to improve as well for themselves.
Can we send the charter to everybody, Canaria?
I will do, yes. That's what I said. I'll do it first thing in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
If that's okay. If you don't have any further questions, or even if you do, I will be in touch with you tomorrow. please do feel free to respond back, to ask any questions that I can then perhaps send to Sabrina, Richard, or Malcolm. I'm sure they will be happy to respond. Yes, have a good evening. And once again, thank you very much for joining the meeting and for the great presentations as well, all our speakers today.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Nice
God
to see
bless
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.